Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your co host, Zara, and with me is my co host, Bilal.
Hello, everyone.
And we're back from the pits of our knowledge to share with you a little bit about revolutionary poet Habib Jalib. Bilal, can you give us a brief introduction, maybe touching upon his early life first?
Yeah, for sure. Habib Jalib, born in 1922 or 1938. Sorry, it was 6 years before. Was a Marxist-Leninist poet and organizer who was frequently imprisoned in Pakistan, as we know, with a lot of these leftist poets. He's best known for his landmark poem Dastur, written against the capitalistic military dictatorship of Ayub Khan as he questioned the sincerity of the 1962 constitution. He's also well known for his revolutionary anthem for the film Zarka, Raqs Zanjeer Pehen Kar Bhi Kya Jata Hai.
Wow.
Wah. Born in Hoshiarpur, Punjab, he then later migrated to Karachi. Although after the partition, he was also labeled as a Karachiite, and he was
Karachiite.
Karachiite, yeah. Even
Interesting.
though he was moved to Lahore afterwards,
Mhm. So his heart was in Karachi.
is still in Karachi, yeah.
Mhm.
And he is
Interesting.
here with the ocean. During his years, like early years, I think Jalib worked for the proofreader as a proofreader at Daily Amroz, which is a daily Urdu language newspaper, of which Faiz Ahmed Faiz was the editor.
Oh, wow. Small world.
Small world. In his tribute, actually, Faiz had referred to Jalib as truly the poet of the masses, aka Shaire Awam or Shaire Inqilab.
Oh.
So I also want to add to recent criticism that he's been getting regarding that Jalib to poet ही नहीं है और वो he doesn't even can be considered as a poet
Mhm.
because I mean of course he didn't write much in Farsi, which is considered as high culture,
Right, like
of
Iqbal.
Iqbal and like all
Faiz
others,
Ahmed
Faiz
Faiz.
Ahmed Faiz and all these other people. They always use Farsi as in Urdu to
Mhm.
make it more Persianized so that it's more of the court language so that
Right.
they can appeal to that Mughaliya culture.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, this guy Jalib was writing more in common language Urdu. I mean, that would include more Hindi words. So that is why
More
also
accessible language.
accessible, exactly.
Right.
I mean, professor and political organizer and member of the Lal Band, Taimur Rahman. I mean, shout out to Taimur Rahman. Please go to his page on YouTube. Says that he was certainly considered poet for the working class masses, largely in part because he wrote and spoke in accessible and relatable way. So yeah, so moving on, he was really a resistance poet, and his poetry spans the entirety of Pakistan's post-colonial era, starting from the 50s and extending all the way to the restoration of democracy in the 1990s, following Zia ul Haq's era. Interestingly, he was initially a member of the Communist Party of Pakistan, but joined the National Awami Party in 57 following the ban on CPP in 1954. CPP being the Communist Party of Pakistan. In his endeavor to revive democracy in Pakistan, Jalib allied with Fatma Jinnah, the sister of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, during the struggle between pro-democracy factions and General Ayub Khan's regime in the 64 elections. Crowds that you would gather, in large numbers to see both of them, Fatma Jinnah and Jalib.
Wow, so
campaign.
him and Fatima Jinnah organized together.
Yeah, they were
That
organizing
is
together.
so fascinating.
That is fascinating. And during those campaigns, he also penned a verse which said "Maa ke paun tale jannat hai idhar aa jao," which literally means there is paradise under a mother's feet. Come here.
Madre Watan.
Madre Watan, Madre Millat,
Madre Millat.
Madre Millat Fatma Jinnah Sahiba. He was
Fatima
also
Jinnah Park. Shout out Fatima Jinnah Park in my hometown, Islamabad.
yeah, he was also I mean as you can imagine arrested numerous times during Yaya's era.
Mhm.
He was incarcerated for composing poetry criticizing military operation in East Pakistan.
Wow.
And then he was also part of the Hyderabad conspiracy case, which
Mhm.
went on from 75 to 79, and he spent 14 years in prison
14 years or months?
14 months. Something like that.
Although years make sense because
Yeah.
he was arrested quite a bit, right?
Yeah, he was quite a bit. Like, I mean, overall, it would have been pretty much like overall his life. There would be a lot of years that he was in behind bars.
Spent, yeah.
And he had a bit of, you can say, like a hard relationship with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. First, he was like, he liked him, but then he sort of developed a discord, and he also penned a verse against him, which was Ladkane Chalo Varna Thane Chalo,
Interesting.
which reflects this discord. And this was actually referred to, or like in context, to a poem that he wrote for a dancer who rejected the request of Bhutto's
A
to
film
come.
actress,
A film
right?
actress, yeah. I mean, I guess
Allegedly, though.
allegedly. Yeah,
Some it's very mixed sources.
okay.
We,
I mean, yeah, this kind of thing is kind of like that, but like, you can maybe expect that if he wanted someone to come to a place and perform for the Shah of Iran,
he would expect
he would,
it.
he would want that person to come. And then I guess she declined it, and she was, subsequently threatened by the government.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah,
It is,
Ladkane
isn't it?
Chalo Varna Thane Chalo, right?
Thane Chalo, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, there were some, during our research, there were some mixed views on this.
Mhm.
Some people said कि हाँ ये उस actress के लिए उसने
Mhm.
वो लिख दिया था, but I don't know. I guess, I don't know. Could not confirm nor
Could not
deny.
confirm. Yeah.
But
So it could be anything related to their, I mean, like, the kind of power that they were trying to exert, because they were in power, right?
for
So
sure,
like, I mean, मतलब वो किसी भी तरीके से आपको like, धमकियाँ दे सकते हैं, like, so it could be related to anything, like,
for sure.
like लोगों की ज़मीनें ली जा रही हैं या कहीं भी
I mean, I
any
know कि
any
जब
kind of
I know
fascism.
कि जब like भुट्टो के era में लोग बदतमीजी कर रहे थे, तो obviously like they were quote unquote taken care of in many instances. but-
Yeah, exactly. So whatever that means, that was being taken care of.
Yeah, whatever that means. But yeah, so interesting. I guess that was during Bhutto's kind of trajectory jo hua tha, like what you were saying, it was kind of like a love-hate relationship
Yeah, love-hate,
between
exactly.
Jalib and Bhutto.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, which is, yeah, because, and I think a lot of people feel that way towards Bhutto, right? It's
Mhm.
kind of this, yeah, I mean, it's like, it was what we spoke about in our previous episode, right? About the
Mhm.
Faustian bargain that Bhutto kind of gave into.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Yeah.
ideal of wanting to actually, do better
something.
for the country, but then, kind of just giving into his ego and,
Yeah. I mean,
the other
Benazir
side.
like asked him to join the party, right? Later on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
So-
sense. Well, moving forward in the Zia era, so Ziaul Haq's era, Jalib was arrested on 3 separate occasions.
Mhm.
Jalib also protested in the streets against the Hudud ordinance, which was a very, I guess you could say, like anti-women
Anti-woman, yeah.
bill.
Very
order.
against, yeah.
So yeah, he protested alongside, the women at the time. And I think that solidarity and that allyship,
Mhm.
right? It also reminds me of the poet Kishore Naheed.
Kishore Naheed.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kishore Naheed. Also, Femida Riaz, who
Mhm.
passed away in 2018. I know that she also, I mean, there's a lot of Urdu feminist poetry actually that depicts the Zia era.
Mhm.
But there was this one particular poem that reminded me of, I guess, Habib Jalib's stance as well.
Mhm.
And that similarity will be discussed later in the episodes. But yeah, her poem, Naheed's poem, section 144,
Mhm.
which is actually, it continues to exist, but it was implemented quite a bit during Zia's era, and that too, like arbitrarily.
Mhm.
But it's a legal statute that prohibits public assembly of 5 or more persons in potentially disruptive situations. So like, I guess, यहाँ भी हुआ था, right? Canada
Right.
में, like during, lockdown and stuff, it was
Right.
very section 144 vibes के like,
Yeah.
2 लोगों से ज़्यादा like group में नहीं हो सकते हो
Group
अगर
में नहीं
तुम
हो सकते।
बाहर हो, like park में बैठे हो, like इस तरह की
Yeah.
चीज़ें. So it's pretty similar to that actually. And it is this section 144 is frequently invoked by law enforcement authorities to disband protest gatherings. So it's a
Right.
very colonial era law.
Hmm.
That is the way that, yeah, it's very undemocratic.
Yeah,
and
authoritarian.
Exactly. It's very much so.
authoritarian.
And yeah, it just disrupts freedom of speech, freedom of expression.
Mhm.
So Naheed wrote this poem, to challenge the Islamization of Pakistan's legal system under the dictatorship of Zia.
Right.
And I just wanted to read out an excerpt. Actually, Bilal, would you be so kind to read in Urdu, and I'll provide an English translation after.
Yeah. ضرور ضرور ملاحظہ کیجیے.
So this is just an excerpt. It's the last verse of the poem section 144 by Kishore Nahid.
ہم گونگے پن کے متلاشی ہیں کہ تالی بجانے والے آواز استعمال نہیں کرتے ہیں. آواز آزاد ہو تو نعرہ منصور، اور گھٹ جائے تو حسن ناصر بن جاتی ہے. مگر گونگے چیخ تو سکتے ہیں، یہ کیوں ہے، یہ کیوں ممکن ہے.
We wish to be mute, for those who clap do not use their voices. A voice that is independent is the cry of Mansoor. When it is suffocated, it becomes Nasir. But at least the mute can scream. Why is that so? How is that possible? So this poem has been excerpted from the book We Sinful Women, which is translated and edited by Rukhsana Ahmed, and it is a book of contemporary Urdu feminist poetry. And it has side-by-side Urdu and English translations. I love this book. Just putting it out there that if you're interested in Urdu feminist poetry, written in the original Urdu with the English translation, I urge you to find this book. If I find a version of it that is open access, I'll share it. But I think it's always better to purchase the book, especially when, it's someone in the community, someone in the arts. It's always better to purchase the book.
Yep.
So just to kind of continue on with, what Nahid was saying in her excerpt, in her verse that we read, she's first exploring the 9th century Sufi mystic Mansur al-Hallaj, who boldly proclaimed himself as Ana al-Haq. His claim was interpreted as the claim of divinity. So Ana al-Haq essentially means I am the truth, and al-Haq is one of the names of Allah.
Okay.
So I think it was during the Abbasid Caliphate.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think during that time, the Caliph was kind of like, this guy is like a kafir, like
Right.
he's going around saying Ana al-Haq, like he's basically saying कि वो Allah है.
He was a heretic.
He was a heretic, essentially. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, but, from a Sufi, perspective, he had actually just gone through like ego death.
Okay.
He was going through fana, like annihilation of the ego. And that's, quoted from Ibn al-Arabi. And anyway, so in the end, he faced public execution for heresy. But, Mansur al-Hallaj is essentially a martyr. And I'll explain later on in this episode why this particular example referring to, the military regime of Zia al-Haq from this poem of Kishore Nahid is relevant. But yeah, following al-Hallaj's example, Nahid turns to Hassan Nasir, who was a poet and political activist in 1960s Pakistan. And Nasir was a leading figure of the banned Communist Party of Pakistan, which also Habib Jalib was a member of.
Yeah, interesting.
And Nasir unfortunately suffered torture and death in police custody. And this was under or during the Security of Pakistan Act. I think it was related to that, the causation.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, despite their sort of, incarcerated demise, related to incarceration, both al-Hallaj and Nasir are resurrected as rebellious voices in Nahid's poetry, which I think is, quite poignant and beautiful. Right. And, it symbolizes the potency of, this kind of literature that's related to, I guess, protesting and kind of taking a stand against brutal dictatorships and, like just saying that it's kind of like, just giving a voice to the oppressed.
To the oppressed, exactly.
It's showing that the oppressed can speak back and, can fight back. Resistance poetry, right? Yeah.
I mean, both of them, right? Like how Jalib and I think somewhere Sheikh Ayaz was kind of like, poetry. Like, they were doing a resistance poetry. Sheikh Ayaz was more like international. He was kind of talking to the Chilean people. Like he was also like, talking against...
Sheikh Ayaz, the revolutionary Sindhi poet.
Exactly, the revolutionary Sindhi poet who first actually wrote in Urdu, but then because of some recommendations from some friends, specifically Ibrahim Joyo, he turned to Sindhi. And later on, just like how Jalib is doing nationally, he was doing internationally. and talking to the Chilean people against the dictatorship of Pinochet.
Oh, in Chile.
So in Chile,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So
Fascinating.
we see this this you can say an influx of these like leftist poets and people like poets who were resisting the authoritarianism, fascism, whatever you want to call it. I mean, yeah, there's a difference between fascism and authoritarianism. We can get into that later, but mostly what people consider it as like, military dictatorship. That is a form of, nowadays people call it dictatorship, but before it was called authoritarianism or some sort of fascism. So yeah, so I'm just wanted to do this a little tangent about Sheikh Ayaz and just like,
Yeah, of course.
to give this, make it people understand that there was also this progressive writers, like, people doing that.
Right.
And there was also a movement which, like, you should, if you want to shed some light on.
Yeah,
of the-
definitely. I mean, I
sounds-
know that Sheikh Ayaz was the only Sindhi member of the Progressive Writers Movement.
Yeah.
And the reason why I feel that the Progressive Writers Movement is also relevant is because, I mean, Habib Jalib was a member.
Mhm.
And in addition to supporting, these very potent communist ideals throughout his life, he was also a member of the PWM, Progressive Writers Movement, which was an anti-imperialist and leftist literary movement and a collective of writers in pre- and post-partition India. And it was very prominent for those who may not have heard it. It was a very prominent, group of writers.
I didn't know it about like 2 weeks ago, so that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know about it either until I started looking into the communist, like Pakistan's communist history.
History, okay.
Yeah. And interestingly, according to a Dawn article, which read, PWM in Urdu literature was the strongest movement after Sir Sayyid's education movement. Undoubtedly, they were the trendsetters for the coming generation of writers. Like, that is
That is
pretty
that
big.
is very, very impressive.
Yeah, Sir Sayyid ke baad Progressive Writers Movement
Was
was
the biggest,
considered,
yeah.
that very, very cool. And so just a little bit about PWM. It was initiated in 1936 in Lucknow by Sayyid Sajjad Zahir and Ahmed Ali, I believe. And afterwards, during the time of partition, very well-known literary figures such as Saadat Hassan Manto, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, Ismat Chugtai, and Ahmed Faraz joined the movement. But in regards to Jalib, as you mentioned, right, he wasn't considered, or he isn't currently considered high culture, right? And I think that is unfortunate, that he was obviously a very legitimate writer.
Right, exactly.
And, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that he doesn't use, not a lot of Persian words.
Right, which
There's
was
a
considered high
high
culture
culture,
at
yeah.
the time.
Yeah, Mughlai,
Mughlai, yes.
Darbari.
And Timur Rahman, I believe, has a video on this, right?
Right, yeah, should, yeah, that's what I was saying, Shout out to Taimur Rahman, and please go out and check out his videos.
Yeah, I definitely second that. So let's dive into the work of our Shair-e-Awam, and let's start with his poem Pakistan Ka Matlab Kya, in which he eloquently portrays that Pakistan came to being in the name of Islam. However, the reality is that many were killed, literally slaughtered, right, for the sake of Pakistan, for the sake of Apna Hamara Mulk, Desh, the reason behind this ideal, the two-nation theory, the ideal behind Pakistan was that everybody would have their basic necessities met.
Necessities met, yeah, at least.
Exactly, like it was supposed to be a sanctuary, right? Like a safe haven for the Muslims of India. But instead, really, only the Anglo-Muslim elite benefited. Like people like Jinnah, right? People who were educated in England or abroad and, had this certain, were from this certain class.
Yeah, a certain elite.
Exactly, a Muslim
Right,
elite.
the Muslim elite.
And Jalib makes his contempt for this class's violence clear, right? In this poem, in a lot of his work. And he also created the slogan Bees Gharane, which was essentially a protest slogan against the 20 elite families of Pakistan who were controlling about 80% country's resources. And unfortunately, that's a reality that still continues on today, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it moved to 22 families, and then the Bais Gharane, there's a big, like, people say that, Bais Gharane, and then now So I think reached to more than 30 or 36, gharane. So keeps on increasing. I think it's always the elite that's being benefited from these things, and that's it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And, that's from a class perspective, but also to just touch upon this from a gender perspective.
Mhm.
Many women also sacrificed their lives and were also literally sacrificed themselves
Mhm.
during partition as the victims and survivors of violence, not just from men of the
Mhm.
other religion,
Right.
but also from their husbands, brothers,
Right.
fathers. And perhaps that's something we'll touch upon in a future episode.
Mhm.
But, there was so much violence for the sake of the Islamic Republic.
Right.
And Jalib, I think his poem Pakistan Ka Matlab Kya, it
Mhm.
really, shines a light upon this reality.
Right.
But, just to go back to the class perspective, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, just as like, 22 gharane, 36 gharane, 20 gharane, whatever that means, he did have a big distaste towards the elite and the dictatorship, adding also the feudalism. I mean, what's happening there, like, big feudals in, Punjab and Sindh. And like maybe the Sardars of, so basically he was against any elites which got together to make Pakistan. He was particularly against the military elite, an outspoken critic of Ayub and Zia's military regimes. But not only that, he also critiqued the Mullah military alliance, the MMA of Pakistan, and did not trust it. Um, Regarding 71, Jalib wrote that this garden is a bloody mess. To portray the unrest and violence that occurred in then East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. And it read, हरियाली को आंखें तरसे बगिया लहू लुहान. Apologies for my Persian. पैर के गीत सुनाऊं किसको शहर हुए वीरान. बगिया लहू लहान.
The garden is a bloody mess.
The garden is a bloody mess. He was also like seemingly fond of Bhutto, as we discussed before, but like, he mostly was just like a one-time fan. He was just, as, especially consider Bhutto had him imprisoned in the Hyderabad conspiracy case.
Right.
And so Jalib did not shy away from criticizing both his and Benazir's governments. Yeah, and like, even though he like you didn't like the governments, but he supported them in moments. Benazir, as we mentioned, offered him a place in PPP, which I don't think he accepted. And on the other hand, he also wrote something during Ziaul Huq's regime, which he recited during the MRD movement, which is the movement to restore democracy. I think this was, just before
I think it was in
Benazir.
1983 Lahore, right?
Yeah, so it was in Lahore, and it goes like, ظلمت کو ذا سرسار کو صبا بندے کو خدا کیا لکھنا.
میں بھی خائف نہیں تختہ دار سے، میں بھی منصور ہوں کہہ دو اغیار سے. کیوں ڈراتے ہو کیوں ڈراتے ہو زندوں کی دیوار سے، کیوں ڈراتے ہو کیوں ڈراتے ہو زندوں کی دیوار سے. ظلم کی بات کو جیل کی رات کو میں نہیں مانتا میں نہیں جانتا.
I am not afraid of gallows. I am Mansoor. Here, Jalib is also referring to Mansoor al-Halaj, a martyr, the same martyr that the Kishwar Naheeds was referring to in the excerpt from her poem, section 144. Tell this to my opponent. Don't scare me from your jails. The tongue of oppression, the night of ignorance. I refuse to accept. So this that we played was Habib Jalib's original recitation of the poem Dastur, which means constitution.
Constitution, yeah.
And this was a verse that, we just put in here in relation to Kishwar Naheed's verse. Also, just their sort of representation of Mansoor al-Halaj as, this martyr, the silenced, the resistance against oppression. So yeah, as explained earlier, this imagery, the symbolism of Mansoor al-Halaj, for example, that's used in resistance poetry, I think वो फैज़ अहमद फैज़ की हम देखेंगे में भी इस्तेमाल हो चुकी है, right?
جی جی بالکل استعمال کرتے ہیں، بالکل استعمال کرتے ہیں، بالکل استعمال کرتے ہیں، نہیں 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 بالکل استعمال کرتے ہیں. اور لائک میں نے دیکھا جائے تو لائک لوگ آپس جیسے حبیب جالب اور شیخ ایاز بھی جو ہے وہ اس طرح کی سمبلزم ایشو سے لائک یوز کرتے ہیں. دے ہیو یوز دا سمبلزم آف ارتھ to like represent the freedom when the rebellions or the rebels actually go ahead and get the freedom, and represented by earth like wind, water and bulbs. Yeah, so that's what is cool. And I guess we get these people in like some centuries, and I guess last century was great for these progressive writers, and I think these kind of writers are a product of authoritarianism. Like if you repress them, they'll come out. So
And there's also, जब कोई authoritarianism होती है या dictatorship या इस तरह की कुछ like जो लोगों को suppress कर रही होती है, I guess, and like just really taking away their rights and their freedoms and their freedom of speech, right? I think it creates this sense of urgency.
Yeah.
So it is almost like Mansoor al-Halaj, right? That urgency can create martyrdom almost.
Yeah.
Like जैसे हबीब जालिब इतने सारे दफा like वो जेल जा चुका है, right? And I think that's pretty symbolic in its own way. And I just wanted to talk about also, just to reroute a bit before the close of this episode, but I just want to reroute back to what we were talking about, the violence that women endured during partition. I do feel like it's a particularly important topic, and for sure we can, get into it in more detail in a future episode, just, from the research that I've done regarding it. But just to go back to, I guess, a more, tangible example of the violence that women faced during that time, Urvashi Butalia has written The Other Side of Silence. It's an oral, I guess, research text. Took interviews with a lot of women during that time, or their families. There was this whole climate of silence, right? A lot of people who went through partition, they didn't want to talk about it. I mean, even my nani was like that, and it took her quite some time. I think she's only just now begun to open up to me about, what she witnessed and
trauma.
Exactly, yeah, partition trauma. And so one of the examples from Urvashi Butalia's book was in reference to Sikh women. And of course, this could have happened to Hindu and Muslim women as well. But the example that I remember was, Sikh women at the time were drowning themselves in wells to preserve the family's honor so that, they weren't, assaulted, whether sexually or not, by men of the other religion from the mobs that were coming to attack the villages. And I mean, just thinking about that, it's very, very wild to think. And I think, just in reference to Habib Jalib, I guess, he was a good feminist ally, a good leftist feminist ally with communist ideas.
Yeah, I know it's very sad, the story that you told about the the women who were drowning themselves to protect their honor, and which is like somehow still alive today. Like people are throwing acid over their wives so that they I don't know, different reasons, karo kari. And yeah, there's like a need for these kind of poets to resist against any kind of dictatorship and authoritarian regimes. And although today there's not I don't think there's, according to the Dastur, it's not a possibility that there's a coup that happens, but it's still a hybrid regime, which is sort of what means that the military is kind of holding everything, or like controlling everything and running the government by itself, but not like becoming the complete rulers of the country.
So kind of like ruling the country from a distance.
From a distance,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Having puppet rulers.
Puppet rulers.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean we need these kind of people and who keep resisting against, this kind of regimes.
And who believe in revolution, right? Like
Mhm.
who really believe in this idea of inqilab, inqilab zindabad,
Yeah, exactly.
in
Yeah,
the words of Bhagat Singh.
Bhagat Singh. So going back to Jalib, he passed away on March 12th, 1993, and was buried in Lahore. The government of Pakistan posthumously awarded Jalib the highest civilian honor, Nishan-e-Imtiaz, in 2009, which then went to his daughter, Tahira Habib Jalib. What makes him immortal is that his revolutionary work spanned over multiple decades, witnessing the creation of the nation-state of Pakistan through its major military regimes in the 20th century and even the aftermath of these regimes and up until his death in 1993.
Wow. Yeah, I think, just to add to that, like Jalib's immortality, you could say, is that, really the beauty of his revolutionary poetry and work is that it transcends this arbitrary border
Mm-hmm.
between Pakistan and India. I remember during the anti-CAA movement, the anti-CAA protests, the Citizenship Amendment Act.
Okay.
A majority of these protests took place in Delhi.
Okay.
And I remember, yeah, there was this, wonderful cover. I can't remember the name of the person who did it, but he did this wonderful cover of the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really, beautiful also to see how how Jalib's words have resonated and are repeated and recited by leftists on, both sides of this, constructed border.
Order.
And so, just as we are about to end this episode, I also think of what Dr. Taimur Rahman, who we mentioned earlier, whose YouTube videos.
Professor Dr. Taimur Rahman.
Yes, thank you, Bilal. Thank you for the shout out to
Shout out.
shout out Dr. Taimur Rahman. So, yes, this is what he had said when speaking of Habib Jalib. Arguably, the most wonderful thing about Habib Jalib was that he was an iconoclast at several fundamental levels. First, he was totally opposed to the currently prevailing socio-economic system of capitalism, neocolonialism, and feudalism. He spent his life as an advocate of the progressive movement, the left of Pakistan. In fact, it would not be wrong to say that he was its most public advocate insofar as the masses of workers and peasants were concerned. And in the words of Jalib, "Main nahi manta, main nahi janta."
Shukriya.
जब जबर के खिलाफ और आमदियत के खिलाफ और आमलों के खिलाफ आप लिखेंगे पढ़ेंगे तो आपको वो सज़ा तो देंगे, तो इसकी सज़ा भुगतनी पड़ी थी। 8-10 बार जेल जाना पड़ा, हर दौर में जेल जाना पड़ा।